Hello, welcome to the Draft Talk podcast. We're back talking all things NFL draft, and it's about time we kicked off our top 5 series. Hey guys, and that's exactly what we are doing today. But before we do, let's introduce ourselves. I'm your host Brian, and joining us today, as ever, it's Owen and Stu. How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Brian. The time has come again a little bit earlier than normal this time, so we can cram more stuff in, which I like because it's Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl season, so we're in the middle of that. It's well and truly draft season, combine around the corner as well. Yeah, this is where we thrive.
Yeah, and this should be an interesting discussion as we hit the top 5s. I think we've talked about it before. It's an interesting draft class with lots to talk about, so we need to dive into it pretty quickly and get through all this people we need to talk about. Yeah, so I'm excited to get started, actually.
Indeed. I think we're all excited. It's top 5 time. Here's how it works. Our 2 top scouts have dug down deep in all these prospects and have put together their top 5 for each position. And today we're going to kick it off with the defensive lineman. Should be a belter. So to kick us off, the top 5, year 5 of us doing this, I'll give you the honour, Stu. Who's your number 5 D lineman for this year's draft class?
Oh, I'm getting to kick it off. So for me, number 5, I have TJ Sanders of the Carolina Gamecocks. He's my number 5 player. He's somebody who is a very impressive burst for a player of his size, who is consistently in the backfield, a really versatile defender. He's about 6'4", around about 290, just under that 300-pound mark. So not the biggest guy in the draft, but he uses that size well. His length is good. He's a really player who puts a lot of effort. He's a high motor, doesn't stop. Really solid tackling technique. He's really disruptive in the backfield as well. He's kind of improved year upon year for me. He's not going to stuff the stat sheet full of loads of sacks, but he gets more than his fair share. He is maybe slightly undersized compared to some of the other guys we're going to talk about. And he's still developing that pass rush repertoire, but I really liked his motor. I think he's someone who is steadily improving year upon year, and that getting into the backfield, I really like defensive tackles who are going to disrupt that backfield, whether it's a mobile quarterback or the running back. So yeah, he's my number 5 player I was really impressed with when I was looking at him.
Yeah, I really like him as well. Long at 6'4", but light at 290. He's probably the lightest player we'll talk about today, I expect. But he doesn't play to his weight. He plays a lot bigger than he does. The only problem is with his weight. It means that when he's double teamed, that'll affect him more. But when you get him 1-on-1, yeah, we've seen it down at the Senior Bowl. He'll get after the passer. He's versatile as well because of that weight. He could line up at different spots, and he's a really refined pass rusher, which is why he's going to appeal in 1-on-1s. I think the Senior Bowl will rocket his stock a little bit. I can see him as a round 2 guy just because of that explosiveness and the speed gears he's got to go through. Real power to speed type player. The first time I'm going to say this on top 5s, he's number 6 for me. We'll hear that a lot as we go along, as we always do.
Yeah, so we're in that same ballpark with him then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we really are. Yeah, he's the kind of guy. I really like that type of defensive lineman who you might play next to a run stuffer and have him a little bit more free to get after the passer, and he's just right up my street. I really like him.
Yeah, aggressive and got that really strong arsenal of pass rush moves. So if you've got a steady nose tackle that you can play him off, I can see TJ Sanders being a really good rookie. Maybe not as good as Braden Fisk has been, but that kind of mold weight, he'll be able to put up a good number of sacks in his rookie season.
Nice. There we go. And your number 5, please.
Yeah, so my number 5 is Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, 6'3", 327, so almost 40 pounds heavier than TJ Sanders. So you can see where this is going. He's just an extremely polished player who offers a really high floor because he is elite in run defense. The Ohio State Buckeyes rotate him in and out, which affects his production. He only had 2.5 sacks in 2024 and 3 sacks in 2023. Look, he's not as flashy as TJ Sanders, as we just spoke about, but he's the type of player that NFL teams need. He's the type of player that will play multiple years in the NFL and will keep on ticking, who's physical, who's aggressive, and most importantly, is really strong against the run. That's underrated when it comes to evaluating players, especially on the defensive line. We look at the production, but stopping the run doesn't often show it in the production, and that's not something we do have to bear in mind. Really good movement skills for his size. You see, 327 pounds, but he moves a hell of a lot lighter. Really impressive run blocking, upper body strength. He just needs to be more consistent to get higher up these rankings, and there's some very good defensive tackles that are ahead of him. But I'm comfortable having him at number 5, and I'm happy taking him at the top of the second round if I'm a team who needs someone who can stop the run and is still progressing as a pass rusher.
Yeah, he's that real kind of fire hydrant in the middle of the defense. You just cannot move him. He's really, really strong, and he is someone who can take on double teams with ease. He's playing at an elite program. He's done really well there. His pass rush, he's got a good bull rush as you'd expect at someone at that size, but he maybe needs to develop his plan a little bit more. But for me, I'm going to quote Owen. He's number 6, so we're very close on. Yeah. We've just flipped those two, so he is my number 6. He just missed out on my top 5 for me, but I can see why you like him. It's again a bit of a. We often see with some of these positions, pick your flavour, isn't it? Yeah. Of what you want and what you need. It's
not flashy, and I'm hesitant to say boring, but that's the kind. So you need steady players. He's been inconsistent with his pass rush, but for his mobility and his strength, and then the run blocking, I could see quite happily a team taking him at the top of the second.
I think that is something we're going to say a lot on these top 5s as well. It's boring, but what teams need.
Yeah, it's that kind of draft.
We're not talking about all the sizzle at the top that you might see in lots of positions. We'll talk about that in a bit more in depth, I'm sure, as this draft goes on. But there's going to be a lot of players who fill roster spots and are very successful for teams and what they need.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff, what we like to hear. Okay, Owen, who's your number 4, please?
Okay, back to me. Number 4 is Derrick Harmon from Oregon. 6'5", 310 pounds, a transfer from Michigan State over to Oregon in 2024, and has had a bumper year with the Ducks, taking a massive jump and now considered a first-round selection by many analysts. Really bolstered his stock in 2024. Has put on a bit of weight, and that's helped him, but he penetrates and he gets after the passer. And for that's what he can do for his size. He is smaller than Tyleik Williams, but he knows how to finish. He's got technique. He's got the plan. Hand placement is some of the best in this class because he was able to stack and shed blockers. And if he can get free, then he'll get after you. He also he twists, and he's got a spin move through the middle. I would just like to see him play a little bit less tight at times, and he can play a little bit high, which means he sacrifices leverage on some plays. But I was really impressed with the year that Derrick Harmon put on tape, and with his size, with his trajectory, and in this class, I really like his disruptive play style to go ahead of here.
Yeah, we're not far off again. I have him at 3. But again, we're not far off with what we're thinking about Derrick Harmon. Yeah, he's a really impressive physical specimen, and he's got good height, and he carries his weight pretty well for a guy that size. You talked about his ability to stack and shed against a run, and I think he is really good at that as well. Pass rush in the interior, though, that is where his calling card, I think, is going to be. He will continually chase and hunt down quarterbacks where he has the opportunity. Yeah, you meant his pad. Like, he sometimes does play a bit high for me. His pads are sometimes up a little bit, but the massive jump that he's had and the ability to disrupt the pocket and disrupt the passes, for me, I really like him. And again, that's the type of defensive lineman that I really gravitate towards. So he was actually number 3 on my list.
Yeah, jumped from 1.5 sacks in 2023 to 5 sacks in 2024, and from 4 tackles for a loss in 23 to 11 in 2024. So even if he isn't getting sacks, he's affecting the quarterback often.
Cracking. Stu, your number 4, please.
My number 4 is, I think, going to be one of 2 Michigan guys for me. So Kenneth Grant is one of my favorite players in this draft as well. Again, different type of guy. He is one of the guys a couple of years ago made the Feldman's Freaks, as we talk about. For a guy his size, he moves really, really well. He's got a very, very quick first step. I mean, this is a mammoth dude in the middle of that defense. He can take on double teams. He's got really good hand usage. He's a powerful tackler. He's an excellent run defender. Again, Owen talked about Tyleik Williams in the run defense. Kenneth Grant is probably where his strengths lie, is more in the run game. But he's disruptive enough, getting through the gaps as well when he needs to. He's kind of moved around the formation a little bit, so he is adaptable. He sometimes is a little bit heavy-footed in his recovery when he's kind of shifted, having to move laterally, and maybe needs to improve his repertoire of pass movement, but he controls gaps pretty well, and he has been a really solid player in the middle of that Michigan defense for them. And again, he's somebody I would have no problem of plugging and playing on an NFL defensive line.
Yeah, I really like Kenneth Grant. I have him at number 2. I think he, at 6'3", 339 pounds, let's call it 340. The way he moves is alien. It's not natural. The quickness and the strength are just formidable on that Michigan defensive line. Him paired with Mason Graham, who we will speak about in some detail. It's just an elite group, and he's able to utilize his frame as well. Plays a lot lighter than he would appear because of that quickness, because of the athleticism he has. He's got prototypical strength, and you would expect that at 340 pounds. The heaviness that you spoke about, Stu, I think that comes from his weight. I think we could see him drop weight even further. When he joined Michigan, he was reportedly all the way up at 360, so he's already dropped 30 pounds. That's over a number of seasons, obviously, but with more training there, I could see that weight coming down, because he is a freakish athlete who is a rare mover and gets production with that as well. 7 tackles for a loss and 3 sacks in 2024. Is rotating in and out quite a lot. He's not on the field all the time like Mason Graham is. He's quite often on the sidelines, and that's probably because of that weight. He's not able to play every down, which I wouldn't expect him to as a rookie, but I can see that coming as the weight continues to come down. But if you want someone who can clog gaps and possesses the athleticism to out-leverage offensive linemen, then Kenneth Grant is your guy. I really like him. I would take him in the first. I don't know whether he will go in the first round. He's a first-round player in my eyes. Maybe if he can clean up the consistency, maybe if he can drop a little bit of weight, but it's just that the athleticism and the strength alone is just really impressive, and he comes alive in critical moments. When a play needs to be made, Kenneth Grant will be there and around the football. Yeah,
he always seems to be in the middle of the action. He doesn't seem to be one of these players who, they're doing their own thing, and you sometimes see people having a bit of a fight, and they're not affecting the play. They're just wanting to beat their man. He's much more aware than that. If there's somebody going past, okay, I need to disengage from my guard or whoever's against. I'm at this. The play's going this way. I'm going to change it. He's got good instincts.
There we go, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. All right, that was Alliance number 2. Stu, let's have your number 2.
As far up as number 2 already in mine. Okay. So number 2 for me is Walter Nolen from Ole Miss. Again, I've probably got a bit of a theme of kind of defensive linemen that I've gravitated towards. He is somebody who has a really explosive first step, and he beats the centers just on that snap timing. So he's in the backfield really very quickly. He's really flexible for a guy he's just a tick over that 300 pounds, about 305, I think, roughly.
He was 293 at the Senior Bowl.
Wow, okay, I didn't actually notice his Senior Bowl weighing for him. And he's got the ability to bend and torque a little bit more than some of these guys as well. And he's got big, heavy hands. He's able to shock those offensive linemen with his initial contact. He can change direction really well. He's got really good power up against double teams. He's really good on things like screen plays. He understands and diagnoses what's going on quickly, and he's out moving very quickly. You can play him probably as far out as probably a 5 tech at times if you needed to, but that kind of 3 is probably where he's at his best. Yeah, I really like him. I think there is things, again, no player is perfect. He sometimes is a bit too much reliant on power, and sometimes his gap discipline's a little bit off. But yeah, for me, I think he's just a havoc causer in the middle of that defense. Let him unleash him and see what he can destroy there. A player I've really liked watching.
Yeah, number 3 for me. We've been there or thereabouts on all of these, haven't we? If you talk about physical attributes, he has all the intangibles. It was 6'3", 293, so weighed in a lot lighter at the Senior Bowl than I think we were expecting. But an incredibly athletic player, sudden burst, really quick and elusive change of direction skills for his size. And his game was significantly improved in 2024, moving to Ole Miss. At Texas A&M, it was really almost stagnating, so that move was
he's almost come.
Paid off for him.
He's really kind of come alive there, and I think he was. Yeah. There might be some other defensive linemen we talk about later on it from Texas A&M. Was he a bit overshadowed there?
Yeah, in the edge group. Yeah,
he's a bit more of the man at Ole Miss.
Yeah. But if you his ability to disrupt the pocket is up there with the best in this class. Mm-hmm. Fluid movement. I could see him going early. What led me to have Kenneth Grant over him was I thought Walter Nolen was a lot more flashy and a lot more inconsistent. I needed to see it more often. And
I get that. Yeah, the flashy plays are flashy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's just almost like there's not enough of them. If that I would have liked to have seen more, because his resume as a pass rusher is exceptional. I just wanted more of it, and he seems to stand up before the snap quite a lot, which I thought was really weird. That you'd want him to get low to create leverage, and that's maybe where that consistency comes from. That you almost like watching film, going, bend your knees a bit, and let's see if we can generate something.
I think he just wants to run. I think it's more than using a leverage for push. Quickness. He just wants to get off that front foot really quickly. But
he's playing off the front foot. You're right. Yeah. But that's where the quickness comes from, because his quickness, his agility, change of direction are just completely overpowering. He's got the strength as well. Just want to see it more. Can move laterally, can slant across. A really solid player. Will likely go in the first round, and if he could keep that pad level down, then that will help me. I think he's got some shorter. I don't know what his arm length was at the Senior Bowl. I've only got his weight. It'll be around somewhere, but maybe I get the impression he's maybe got shorter arms compared to some of them, which may lead to some of the inconsistencies. But someone who can take on blocks, combo blocks, double blocks, Walter Nolen will be a first round pick. I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
As sure as you can be in an unpredictable class.
Sure, with an asterisk. There you go. If you've been counting, we've had the 5s, the 4s, the 3s, the 2s, which means we've got 1 left. And I'll let you introduce our number 1, joint number 1, top 5. Number 1, top 5. Yeah, number 1.
Number 1, it's Michigan's Mason Graham. We've spoke about him a lot already. We both think he is a blue chip prospect. We spoke about that in the last episode we recorded. Sorry. And absolutely elite. 2024, 45 tackles, 7 for loss, 3.5 sacks. And that really doesn't do justice the penetration and the disruption that Mason Graham can cause. His ability with his strength to get off blocks and his refined pass rush skill set is mightily impressive. He plays heavy, he plays violent, but he also has dynamic movement. He's intelligent. He anticipates. He's aware pre-snap. There is just nothing really on tape that you can say he does badly. I don't have any negatives on on my notes on Mason Graham, because he, for me, is really good. I think he's a top 3 player in this class. Yes, you might want some more production, but that's what happens when you're playing on a Michigan team where all the attention is on you as an elite blue chip player. I think he's got everything.
Yeah, I think other than maybe Jalen Carter, he's probably the best defensive tackle that we've had coming through, and I think that Owen's covered a lot of it really well. But I think the things for me that sets him aside from everybody else is his hand. His hand technique and hand fighting is way better than anyone else, but it's not chaotic. He's really strong and really violent with his hands, but it's done with a control and a reason behind it all. And he's just really nasty. He's a real nasty player. And by the end of 4 quarters, that offensive linemen know they've been in a game. They've taken an absolute battering. But he's not just a battering ram. He has got refinement to his game. He defends the run well. He can get in the backfield. I think the sky's the limit for him. If things go well, he's using the right team, we could be talking about one of the guys. It's difficult to say that about a lot of players. A lot of time, he could be one of the top young defensive tackles in the league, right up at the top. And it's a big if. We always know that there's risks coming into a draft. He has everything that you could want there to play in that game. And I would have no qualms at all if I was a top 5 team and picking Mason Graham in that top 5 somewhere and sticking him on the field from day one.
Yeah, like controlled violence, I think, is the way you could describe his play style, with a sprinkling of athleticism in there. Because the way that he can pursue, whether it's the passer or whether it's runners, the way he can pursue players once he's beaten the offensive line with his first step, it's just ridiculous, really. Yeah, I would agree. Would we evaluate him better than Jalen Carter? I don't know. I would say certainly on par, though. You're muted. That's the first time we'll say that as well. That won't be the last time.
That's only the first episode, so come on, guys. And it's usually me as well.
There's one an episode, isn't it?
There's one an episode, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about Carter. He's in that stratosphere. Yeah. For me, I think there's nobody else other than that we've looked at. And we've had some good defensive tackles, but he's the one that gets you excited, that you think, yeah, he's going to be a name that a lot of people know within a couple of years of being in this league.
Yeah. I think he represents a really exciting group of defensive tackles that we spoke about there, that we've been doing this for 5 years now, and there hasn't been a lot to be excited about a defensive tackle, whereas this year that there really is, that it's got a bit of everything.
It's a very good group.
Yeah, it's got that elite blue chip player in Mason Graham. It's got plug and play starters that we've talked about. There's nose tackles that she'll touch on, 3 tech players. I've got 18 defensive linemen that I could see going in the first 3 rounds, and we haven't been able to say that in the last at least 5 years since we've been doing this. That it's an outstanding group.
Yeah, it's almost a shame that there's a lot of guys who we've not even come close to talking about would have easily made our top 5 in years gone past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're not even going to be coming close to being talked about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could talk about them a little. Why not? Put some extra names out there. Who do you like?
TJ Sanders would have been 6 for me. Alfred Collins would have been 7. I really like him from Texas. Texas always seems to produce defensive linemen, and he's the next one. Really powerful presence up front that fills gaps. He could go in the top 50. And then next on my list would have been Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, who hasn't played an awful lot. Tennessee are this really strange on defense where they rotate players in and out an awful lot. There's a certain edge rusher from Tennessee who I imagine we're going to say the same thing about on the Edge episode, but he's 6'5", 335 pounds, so a physical specimen. He's really quick and got a lot of elusive movements to him, former 4-star recruit as well. I think he's got really translatable traits. We just need to see him on the field. Yeah, and there's a load more names that I'll let Stu touch on a couple of them.
Yeah, another one. I might have seen some this year, but a monstrous guy, Dion Walker.
Yeah, I want to see your opinion on him.
His first opinion is he's massive. He's a behemoth.
That's a fact. It's not an opinion.
Yeah, that is definitely not an opinion. He's interesting in that he has got a lot of physical attributes. I think he's still not consistent enough for me yet. He does play too tall because he is such a tall guy. He allows offensive linemen to get underneath him a little bit. He's a little bit one-dimensional, I think, but he is teams are going to be intrigued. Again, we've talked about an excellent run defender. I think his pass rushing is maybe just not quite there, but given the size and some of his movement skills, I think he is someone that teams will be interested in. Again, and I don't know where he's going to go, but there's a bit of intrigue there, I guess, from him. Yeah, there's a few other guys that.
Can I just back on Dion Walker just because he's obviously in the headlines right now because of his Senior Bowl weight, 100th percentile and 99th percentile in height and weight at 6'5", 335 pounds. Also got 10.5 inch hands, 34.5 inch arms. So that size is just ridiculous. Mock draft in the summer, he was a top 10 pick. The people thought that his 7.5 sacks he had in 2023, that he was going to be that player in this class, and it just hasn't materialized for him,
been for
at
him,
all. I'm not sure I'd be going anywhere near him, to be honest with you. I'm not particularly, the weight's impressive, but not necessarily for the right reasons for me. Because the weight is a concern, because he has to take plays off. He can't play full throttle all the time, carrying that much weight. Yeah, he's a monster, and he possesses stupid athleticism for that size. But I'm not sure I could go near. He would be defensive tackle 13 for me right now. There's going to be people who have him as a top 5 defensive tackle. I can see the upside, but I just don't see how, without cutting significant weight, and he can't cut his height, let's be honest, isn't he? He can't physically do that. That I don't see how he can stay on the field enough. And we had this conversation with Devondre Sweat last season. Very different type of player to Dion Walker, because Dion Walker is really has got an impressive bag of pass rush moves. He's just not able to use them enough because he can't give 100% on every play. He just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on and on and on about guys in this. Another one I'm interested to see what you think of one I quite liked. I wasn't expecting to like him. It's CJ West.
Yeah, from Indiana.
Yeah,
right.
He was interesting. In again, he's one of these guys that he's got a good burst. He's got good leverage. He's got a little bit of some pass rush moves to him, a bit more than I was expecting. Not just the buoy. He's got a nice swim move and things. He's played well against kind of non-conference games against better opponents. Yeah. But for me, I think he just kind of struggled with his pad levels a little bit. But there was something there I quite liked. I'm not going to say I've kind of not ranked everybody, but there was something about him I quite liked.
Yeah, I think he's a day 3 player. I wouldn't have him anywhere near the top, but I think he's got polished enough hand accuracy to offer something, and he can consistently create leverage on passing downs, and he can plug gaps against the run. Was it 6'2", 315 pounds? Yeah. I can see him being in a rotation, that's for sure. But I think he's probably. I think he
just had some flashes that I quite liked, but again, there's so many guys. You know, he would be bumped up quite a bit on other drafts and defensive line as well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Give me our top 5s plus a few more in there. Maybe we should go our top 6s.
No,
not going to say ring to it, has it? Top
well,
six.
like
No,
he
that's
be
not
my.
going to
He
work.
is my number 6. It comes in nearly every top 5.
There we go. But good stuff, guys. Great starts to the season. But before we go, would you be so kind as to remind our wonderful listeners and viewers of each of your top 5s, please?
Would you? No, I'll go first because he's muted again. Number 5 was Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Number 4 was Derrick Harmon from Oregon. 3 was Walter Nolen from Ole Miss. 2 was Kenneth Grant from Michigan. And number 1 was Mason Graham, also from Michigan.
So yeah, it was TJ Sanders from South Carolina at 5. Number 4 was Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Number 3, Derrick Harmon from the Oregon Ducks. Number 2, Ole Miss is Walter Nolen. And number 1, also Mason Graham from Michigan.
There we go. 1 top 5 in the bag. Got a very exciting one coming up very soon. So do not despair. We'll be back. Soon. It's got to be good. Got to be a juicy one. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening.